Back with you in the Element Well Studios, we welcome now Alyssa Arbuckle, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. I paused last week when you were on vacation. Will forgot. Ha, ha, ha. All right, Alyssa. So you were just telling me a moment ago a plane has crashed at Ocean Springs Middle School. No injuries. I'm looking at on our website at the story, and there's a photo there. Yeah, it looks like it was on football, soccer practice field there.
It was. It happened this morning. To my knowledge, there's been no injuries. The pilot is fine, but the plane took off from Ocean Springs Airport and crashed about 1 mile from the airport. So it wasn't like they had problems right whenever they took off, realized there was an issue, and then safely landed for the most part in the field. But, I mean, if you look at the photo on the website, it looks like the body of the plane is still intact, but the plane, like the wings and everything, those look pretty much demolished. Yeah. So, fortunately, nobody has had any injuries at this time. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm glad that they made it out okay.
It also looks, being a pilot and flying a plane that had retractable landing gear, I noticed that the nose gear is collapsed because the plane settled nose down with the tail up in the air. So, I mean, but that would have been something the pilot would have done when they knew that they were going to have to land in a field there. And, of course, you'd keep the gear up as long as you could, retracted to just maintain altitude and get you a little more distance because the gear would slow you down. But, yeah, I'm glad that they're okay. And you can see there you're right, the fuselage, the cockpit is intact, but the wings are mangled up and have separated from the fuselage. I'm sure we'll learn more about what happened. But fortunate that they found, and that's what you're taught to do as an old pilot. That's what they teach you to do is find an open space you can set that thing down in. And the pilot obviously saw the big open field there and felt like they could get the plane down on that.
Yeah, and nobody was out there, I guess, because, summer break and everything. So if there was a time to have to use the field, I guess now is the best time to do so.
Yeah, that's what you're taught. Through my many hours of learning how to fly an airplane, typically what the instructor would do is while you were just putting along, doing some task that had been assigned to you by the instructor in the airplane, all of a sudden, my instructor was Katie Brown, was her name, was a great female aviator. And Katie would, when I was looking out the window the other way, push that throttle all the way in, simulating an engine down. Okay, you just lost your engine. What are you going to do? And there's a whole series of procedures you go through. And so learning how to fly an airplane is learning and practicing things you hope never happen. About 99% of the time, flying an airplane's easy. But this pilot obviously executed those procedures perfectly and saved his life. And if he had passengers on board, I'm not sure. But that's good. So appreciate that update. What an interesting photo that is as well there that just shows perfectly what's going on. What else is going on? It's going to be hot, right, across the Magnolia State.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
this week.
We have already had severe weather in the previous weeks. I'm sure everybody across Mississippi has already had some kind of dose of it. I know I did. 1 week ago, get this, a tree branch fell on my car at 5:20 in the morning. So I know that I had my fair share of some severe weather damage, but over 150,000 Mississippians lost power. This was over the course of an entire week where, everybody had at least 5 storms or something like that ended up being really severe. I think that Jackson and Jasper counties were the ones that got hit hardest. You can see some really interesting photos, specifically in Moss Point. They put out a lot of photos of the high school, too. The high school gym got really, really impacted, a lot of damage. But fortunately, there weren't too many, injuries. There were some. Unfortunately, it was 25 people were injured. I think 18 were hospitalized and 1 fatality. That was a resident in Loon, I believe. So. Yeah, thankfully nobody else was injured over the whole entire week of really bad weather. But I know everybody's been on top of it. There were a couple of tornadoes. One of them was an EF3 tornado in Jasper County. So that ended up being really rough on all the residents there. But thankfully, we've had a pretty nice week so far.
We have. Bizarre weather last week, though, for sure. All right, the Jackson water hearing. What's going on there?
Okay, so this all started last week. I think it was Wednesday. Lumumba, he had a press conference where he was announcing that expecting mothers and mothers that had children like 5 and under, they were going to be able to receive a free water filter. And that was from United Healthcare. They donated $100,000 so that filters could be sent out. And he said that the main reason was that, he wanted the people who are most vulnerable to, water issues and such to be protected and have, safe health and everything and healthy babies. And he said, what better way than to give out a free water filter, build the confidence of residents in Jackson in their own water. And shortly after that, U.S. District Court Judge Henry Wingate, he sent out a calling for both Lumumba and the interim third-party manager over Jackson's water, Ted Hennepin, called for them both to be at a court hearing 1 week later to discuss, is Jackson's water safe to drink? Is it, if people need to have water filters, if this is going to impact people's health, is it safe to drink? Is it safe right now? Does it hold up to, all of the regulations?
Yeah.
And so they came in on Wednesday and they had to talk about it. And Lumumba said, I've never said that the water was unsafe to drink. I just said that I wanted people to feel more confident that their water is safe. And what better way to do that and reduce the cost of buying a bunch of bottled water every single month, than to have a water filter. And Ted Hennepin said, well, these water filters, they cost $50 to replace. Every 4 months, you got to pay $50 to replace that. And you're just adding another expense to these people. It might have been good intentions, but you're worrying people, it might have worried people. And, even though they get 2 filters, they're still going to have to pay money to replace them.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Hennepin in the end said, yes, Jackson's water is safe to drink. Lumumba said, there have been issues with lead being found in the water. And that the Mississippi Department of Health has consistently recommended that vulnerable citizens in Jackson drink filtered water because of the presence of the lead in the past, just to make sure. But at this time, Jackson water is safe to drink, and Ted Hennepin is in charge of making sure it is that way.
I bet we hear more on this. This isn't going away.
Definitely.
Yeah. The hospitals in the state of Mississippi did not get too favorable a rating from the Commonwealth Fund that that does that. They're a nonpartisan group that there's a healthcare foundation as part of the Commonwealth Fund, and they have scored hospitals in states, in the 50 states and Washington, D.C., on a number of categories, and Mississippi came in as 51st. What do you know about that?
Well, I know we had the state health officer, Dr. Dan Edney, on this week, and he said a lot of things about the state's current situation with the hospitals. Just a couple months ago, I think it was late April, the Center for Healthcare Quality and Payment Reform said that 27 hospitals in Mississippi are at risk of closure, with 20 of them risk of immediate closure, actually. But in the areas that are the worst are the Delta and Southwest Mississippi. It seems like Natchez and Macomb are okay, but there are a lot of hospitals that are on the verge of not being able to serve their own residents anymore. And so even Greenwood LaFleur, that one's a pretty big hospital. About 80% of care is going uncompensated right now. And so it's a really difficult time. And a lot of officials have said, it wouldn't be the, complete solve of the problem to expand Medicaid, but it would be something that would really help substantially keep hospitals in the state open. So I know a lot of people who are professionals in the field think so.
Yeah, it's just a big old problem that I think our government is probably going to have to address And there's going to be people in the legislature that are going to call for some sort of action. What that might be, I don't know. But this isn't going away either.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and we'll be covering that a lot more and talking about it. Alyssa, always a pleasure of you coming in on middays and giving us a great update. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. We're coming right back with more in the Element Wealth Studios.